Ever heard the word derivatives and just kind of tuned out? It sounds super complicated, right? Like something only Wall Street pros deal with? But what if I told you that derivatives are secretly shaping your world every single day? And their story? Well, it doesn't start in a skyscraper, it starts on a farm. Okay, so picture this. You're a farmer, it's June, your fields are looking great, full of soybeans that you're going to harvest and sell in October. The problem? You have absolutely no idea what the price of soybeans will be in 4 months. What if it crashes? All your hard work could be for nothing. So what do? How do you deal with that kind of uncertainty? Well, the short answer is you can't. You can't predict the future. But what you can do is protect yourself from that uncertainty. And that's it. That is the fundamental problem, this need to manage risk, that derivatives were invented to solve. So what exactly is a derivative? At its absolute core, it's just a contract. But its value doesn't come from the piece of paper it's on. Its value derives from something else, something real, which we call an underlying asset. See? The clue is right there in the name. And what are these underlying assets? Well, they can be all sorts of real-world stuff. We're talking about the farmer's soybeans, the coffee beans for your morning brew, the crude oil that becomes gasoline for your car. It could also be stocks, currencies, gold, you name it. A derivative is basically a financial agreement that's tied to the future price of one of these things. Let's think of derivatives as a kind of financial toolkit for managing risk. The first and maybe the most basic tool we're going to pull out of that kit is called a futures contract. A futures contract is a really straightforward deal. Two people agree today on a price for an asset that will be exchanged on a specific date in the future. But here is the most important part. It is an obligation. Both the buyer and the seller have to go through with the deal. You can't just change your mind. It's locked in. Okay, but what if you don't want to be locked in? What if you want a little more flexibility? A little more, well, choice? That brings us to the second major tool in our kit, the options contract. An option, just like the name says, gives you a choice. It gives the person who buys it the right, and this is the key word, the right, not the obligation, to buy or sell an asset at a price you've already agreed on. Now, to get that kind of awesome flexibility, the buyer has to pay a small fee up front, and we call that the premium. So let's just hammer this home, because it's the main difference. A futures contract is an obligation. It's a promise you have to keep. An options contract is just that, an option. It's a choice you can make if it's good for you, but you can walk away if it's not. It's the difference between being forced to buy the house and having the right of first refusal. Totally different. Now, options themselves come in two basic flavors. You've got a call option and a put option. It's actually super simple. A call option gives you the right to buy. You'd want that if you think the price is going to go up. A put option gives you the right to sell. You'd use that if you think the price is going to drop. Just remember, call up, put down. All right, let's see how this actually works. Say you think ABC stock is about to soar. You buy a call option for a $150 premium. That gives you the right to buy 100 shares at $25 each. Then, boom, the stock shoots up to $35. So you exercise your right, you buy those 100 shares for the $2,500 you locked in. But then you can immediately turn around and sell them for the current market price of $3,500. That's a quick $1,000 gross profit. Take away the $150 you paid for the option, and you just made a cool $850. That's the power of leverage right there. Okay, so we've looked at the tools, but who's actually using them, and what are they trying to do? Well, to get that, we need to meet the three main players in the derivatives market. First, you've got your hedgers. This is our farmer. They're not trying to get rich, they're just trying to reduce their risk by locking in a price. Then you have the speculators. They're the opposite. They're taking on risk, making bets on where prices are going to go, all in the hopes of making a big profit. And finally, you have arbitrageurs. These are the traders who look for tiny, temporary price differences for the same thing in different markets and jump on them to make a quick, low-risk profit. And it's really important to know this isn't some Wild West back-alley deal-making. The vast majority of these trades happen on huge, organized exchanges. These exchanges act like a referee. They make sure all the contracts are standardized, so everyone's on the same page, and they guarantee that both sides will make good on their deal. So let's zoom out for a second. Why should any of us care about this stuff? What role does this seemingly complicated market actually play in the real world, in the bigger economy? Well, one key thing to get is the difference between what's called the cash market and the derivatives market.
In the cash market, if you buy a share of stock, you actually own that little piece of the company. Simple. In the derivatives market, you don't own the stock itself. You own a contract that's based on that stock's future price. It's a whole different ballgame. And because of that difference, these markets perform some vital jobs for the entire economy. We know they're all about risk management, but they also help with price discovery. They're like a giant crystal ball that shows what thousands of people expect prices to be in the future. They also add liquidity, which is just a fancy way of saying they make it easier for people to buy and sell things smoothly. And they're capital efficient, meaning you can get in on the action without having to put up a ton of money. So the next time you're filling up your car or buying a cup of coffee, just remember there's this invisible world of contracts that help shape the price you're paying. It was influenced months ago by hedgers trying to play it safe and speculators making bold bets. Derivatives are kind of like the hidden architecture of our global economy, managing risk and figuring out prices behind the scenes. And that makes you wonder, what other invisible forces are out there shaping our world?